Welcome back, everyone. Ready to dive into another Deep Talks?
Sounds good to me.
Great. Today, we're going way back to ancient Rome.
Ooh, ancient Rome.
Yeah, to explore this really fascinating shift from republic to empire.
Yeah.
At first glance, it might seem like just a history lesson.
Right.
But trust me, this is surprisingly relevant,
Yeah.
to stuff today. I mean, to leadership and organizations and all kinds of things. I was looking through the sources you sent over. You gave us articles,
Oh, wow.
podcast script even.
That's great.
It's going to be a wild ride, I think.
Okay.
So to kick things off, the Roman Republic, it was founded way back in 509 BCE. And one thing that really struck me when I was, reading these sources was just how it was structured to prevent any single person from getting, too much power.
Oh, yeah. That's really interesting when I think about it. I mean, when we picture these ancient rulers, it's all, emperors and kings and,
Right, exactly.
just kind of assume they had absolute power. But the Republic, it was designed very differently.
It really was. It wasn't just a, simple democracy either. It was this really kind of intricate system with consuls, a senate
Oh, yeah.
in these assemblies.
Yeah, and each one with its own role. It's almost like an early version of that separation of powers.
Right, exactly.
That we see in governments today.
Yeah, it's amazing how forward-thinking they were.
It really is.
Now, this concept of res publica, did you come across that in your
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
That came up quite a bit, and it literally means public affair.
public affair?
Which is a really powerful idea, right? It underscores that Rome belonged to its people.
Not just one ruler.
Right, exactly. Not to a king or an emperor
Yeah.
making all the decisions. It was this shared responsibility.
So how did that actually work in practice? Like, we've got these consuls, the Senate, the assemblies. What were they actually doing?
So the consuls, they were kind of like the chief executives.
Okay.
They were responsible for running the day-to-day affairs.
Mhm.
And then you had the Senate, which was made up of, elder statesmen, these experienced figures who could provide guidance and oversight.
Okay, so they were like the advisors.
Exactly. Kind of, keeping an eye on things, making sure everything was running smoothly.
And then the assemblies. Well,
Oh, yes, the assemblies. So those were, where ordinary citizens had their say. They could vote on laws,
right.
elect officials, and the sources really emphasize how this system, while, not perfect,
Right.
really encouraged public engagement.
Oh, I didn't.
And this sense of civic duty, people felt responsible for Rome's success. It wasn't just something happening to them. It was something they were a part of.
Yeah, they had skin in the game.
Exactly. And that's a really powerful idea. I think that's relevant even today.
Oh, absolutely. And it's amazing to me how this ancient system has so many echoes in modern ideas of checks and balances,
Yeah.
right? Like, we were just talking about separation of powers. One of the articles you sent even mentions these tribunes.
Yeah, right. The tributes.
Yeah, the Roman Republic. And they could essentially veto
Yeah.
laws they thought were bad for the people.
Yes, they were like, a safeguard against
Tyranny.
tyranny. Yeah, against the Senate or the consuls getting too powerful. And if we think about modern governments, we have things like legislative committees.
Yes.
Dedicated to reviewing, whether laws are constitutional or not.
Right, yeah.
It's all about making sure no single entity
Yeah, can just do whatever they want.
can just do whatever they want. Exactly.
So the Romans were really onto something here.
They really were. I mean, they recognized, way back then, the importance of distributing power.
And it seems like this structure, this republic, it worked for a while.
It did for a time.
But like any system, it had its weaknesses.
Right.
And the sources, they talk about how as Rome grew, as it became more powerful, things started to get a little messy, right?
Yeah, things started to unravel a bit. And one of the major issues that the sources highlight is this growing economic inequality.
Oh, yeah, that comes up a lot.
Yeah, it does. Wealth became increasingly concentrated among the elite. And this led to, all sorts of problems, both social and political.
Yeah, one of the articles even uses this phrase, a widening chasm.
Oh, yeah.
To describe the gap between the rich and the poor.
That's a powerful image.
And it paints this picture of how this this economic disparity,
Yeah.
it really fueled political factions,
Mm.
each one kind of vying for power.
Yeah, each one trying to get, the upper hand and ultimately, kind of weakening Rome from the inside.
And that makes me think about, Julius Caesar, because, he's this charismatic military leader,
Yeah.
obviously
Yeah.
hugely popular. And in the sources, it talks about how he really challenged the very core of the Republic
Mm.
with his ambition.
He did. And his assassination in 44 BCE, as one source puts it, was a desperate attempt to save the system.
Right.
But ultimately it failed.
It's almost like Rome was having this identity crisis,
Yeah.
caught between its Republican ideals and this allure of a strong leader.
And that's a tension that we'll explore further
Absolutely.
in the next part of our deep dive. How did the Roman Empire rise from the ashes of the Republic?
Yeah.
And what was the lasting impact of this transformation?
What happened next? Stay tuned.
So picking up where we left off, right?
Sure.
Caesar's assassination.
Yeah, huge turning point.
Yeah. It created this massive, power vacuum.
Total chaos, the sources say.
Oh, yeah, chaos. I mean, the Republic, it was already struggling, right?
Mm.
And then this just throws everything into turmoil.
Right, the whole system's about to implode.
Exactly. And from that chaos, well, that's where Augustus comes in.
Caesar's heir.
Right. And he eventually becomes Rome's first emperor in 27 BCE.
So how does that even happen? Like, Rome's supposed to be this republic.
Right. And that's what's so fascinating about Augustus. He was incredibly shrewd.
Yeah.
He knew, he had to walk this fine line.
Mm.
Because on the one hand, people were craving stability, security, stuff the Republic wasn't really delivering on anymore.
Right, yeah.
But then there were still those who were, really attached to those Republican ideals.
They didn't want a king.
Exactly. They opposed any kind of centralized power. So Augustus, he plays it smart.
One of the articles describes it like he kept up appearances.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
He kept the Senate around, these institutions of the Republic. But in reality, he was pulling all the strings.
A puppet master.
Kind of, yeah. It was a very calculated move. And it allowed him to usher in this era. It's called the Pax Romana.
Pax Romana. I've heard of that.
Yeah, the Roman peace. And it lasted for, over 2 centuries.
Wow.
And during that time, the sources describe, unprecedented peace and prosperity.
So it sounds like Augustus delivered on what the Republic couldn't.
He did. He created a secure and stable society. But, and this is important, it came at a cost.
There's always a catch.
Right. See, by centralizing power, under himself, Augustus, he set a precedent.
For all the emperors who came after.
Exactly. And not all of them were, shall we say, quite so benevolent.
Yeah, that's where things get a little dicey, right?
A bit, yeah. It's like you get the stability, the efficiency, but you lose those checks and balances.
Which, to be fair, the Republic struggled with.
True, but they were there. And without them, the system, it depends entirely on the character of whoever's in charge.
And that is a gamble, for sure.
Huge gamble. And the sources point this out. Look at Caligula.
Oh, yeah.
Nero.
Oh, yes.
Their reigns. I mean, tyranny, except...
We're talking crazy stories.
Oh, yeah. Like Caligula, known for his cruelty, totally unpredictable.
And Nero, I mean, the extravagance, totally out of touch with his people.
And it ultimately led to his downfall. Which just goes to show, right? Unchecked power.
Dangerous.
Extremely dangerous. Even when it starts with, good intentions.
It's like that saying, right? Power corrupts.
Absolutely. And it makes you think, doesn't it, about the importance of transparency, accountability.
In any system.
In any system, yeah. Whether it's ancient Rome or, democracies today.
And speaking of that, we were talking earlier about how the Republic fostered this sense of civic duty.
Mm-hmm.
But under the Empire, it seems like that kind of shifted.
It did. It became less about active participation.
More about just, obeying the emperor.
Right. So I'm curious, about this change in civic duty, because it comes up in a lot of the sources. But what exactly changed and what were the consequences? So we were talking about civic duty, right? How it changed under the Empire.
Yeah, you were going to explain that.
Right. So in the Republic, it was all about active participation.
People getting involved.
Exactly. Voting, serving in government, debating in the forum, citizens shaping their city.
But then under the Empire, it sounds like it became more about, following orders.
Yeah, it was less about actively shaping Rome's destiny and more about, obedience. maintaining that stability.
Interesting. So instead of, like, citizens having a say, they were just expected to go along with whatever the emperor decided.
Pretty much. They still had to contribute to society, but it was a much more passive role. The sources talk about this transition from active citizenship to a more top-down approach.
Where the emperor's word was law.
Exactly.
Hmm.
And everyone else just had to fall in line.
Do you think that shift in how people thought about civic duty, do you think that had anything to do with the empire eventually declining?
That's a tough question. I mean, it's hard to say for sure,
Yeah.
but it makes you wonder, right? When people feel like they have a voice, they're usually more invested in their society.
They care more.
Yeah, they care more, but when it's like they're just cogs in a machine.
Just going through the motions.
Exactly. Their sense of responsibility can fade.
It makes me think about, democracies today
Mm.
and how important it is for people to actually participate.
Oh, absolutely.
Voting, speaking out about things they care about.
Staying informed.
Yeah. If people aren't engaged, can that weaken the whole system?
It's a real possibility. Apathy can be just as damaging as any kind of tyranny. It creates this void where, corruption can take root and,
Yeah.
and power can be abused. The Roman experience, it suggests that a healthy society needs active, engaged citizens, people who feel a sense of ownership
Yeah, yeah.
and responsibility for their society.
So I guess looking back at all this, from republic to empire, we can't really say one system was better than the other, can we?
No, not really. They both had their pluses and minuses.
The strengths and weaknesses.
Exactly. The Republic, it emphasized citizen participation, checks and balances.
Which is awesome.
It is, but it also had problems with instability.
And getting things done sometimes.
Right. Efficiency wasn't always its strong suit. The empire, well, it brought peace and prosperity.
That Pax Romana.
Yeah, but at the cost of individual freedom and the potential for, unchecked power. So it's all about finding that balance between efficiency and engagement, strong leadership, and limits on power.
That sweet spot.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And Rome's story, it's a good reminder that no system is perfect.
There's no magic bullet.
Right. The challenge is constantly trying to find that balance.
Yeah.
Learning from the past, adapting to the present, and always being aware of, the dangers of power.
No matter what system you're working with. Wow, this has been quite the deep dive. Just goes to show, ancient history, it's still relevant today.
Absolutely. It's full of lessons we can still learn from.
And to our listener, thank you so much for these amazing sources.
Yeah, this has been a great conversation.
We hope you enjoyed this deep dive into Roman history and maybe learned a thing or two about leadership, governance, and why civic duty matters.
It's been a pleasure.
Thanks for joining us.